Good day. In order to be definitive, a game must embody all aspects of a property, and Star Trek Online does just that. In short, Star Trek Online is the single greatest Star Trek game ever made. And I don't use that label lightly. I have played many of the legendary Star Trek games, such as Starfleet Command 2 and 3, and Armada. This isn't my first foray into the Alpha Quadrant. Now, Star Trek Online is also notable for the fact that it is entirely free. You can get access to the entirety of the game for $0 and even less cents. There are a few things that do cost real money though, but they are both cosmetic and optional. The gameplay is divided between space and ground combat, with space being the lion's share of the game, which makes sense since it's called Star Trek, not Old Republic. In space, the interface in combat is a mix of Star Trek Starfleet Command complexity with the 3D movement of Star Trek Legacy. On the ground, you just have a basic third-person shooter interface. One unique thing, though, is the fact that you get access to a party of 5 rather than 4, 3, or just 1. One really cool thing is the fact that you can go to the bridge of your starships and walk around in them. And these environments are very detailed, and it actually makes you feel like you're on a real starship. The basic gameplay for the game is, as you would expect, you complete quests and kill enemies, get XP, and to level up. But the loot system does not actually include any form of currency. Rather, when you complete a quest, you just get items and XP. Now, the currency and the economy in general will be discussed later. Now, there are 3 factions to choose from: the Federation, the Klingons, and as of the latest expansion, the Romulans. Each faction has multiple races to choose from, but it doesn't really matter what race you choose, since none of the NPCs will actually mention it. In fact, when I was on Vulcan, playing as a Vulcan, no one noticed and I was called emotional. Graphically, the game is very nice looking, with the ships looking better than they have ever been before, and your custom names actually show up on the hull. And this is where the MMO aspect of the game makes the game even better than if it were just single player. You see, when you warp to Space Dock, there's just a huge amount of ships there, and it is all very awe-inspirational. The third-person segments actually look pretty decent as well, though they can be graphically lacking at times, and there are a few graphical glitches during these segments. The sound for the game is also really quite good, with all the sounds being as one would expect them to be from the show. However, the voice acting is pretty bad. Thankfully, it's not actually a big deal, since there is very little voice acting in the game itself. And now let's get to the economy. There are 4 resources that one can acquire. There are energy credits, and these are gained by selling unneeded equipment and can be used to buy basic items and 1 ship from the shipyard. And then you have the most important resource of the game, the dilithium. This is used to buy upgrades for your ship and new ships in general. Getting this resource is the most grind-intensive part of the game, as you can only get small amounts of it at a time. Then you have Zen, and this is real money. This can be used to buy optional ships and cosmetic upgrades. Lastly, there is gold-pressed latinum, and that is used for literally gag items. Moving on, we have the single greatest goal in the game, the acquisition of ships. Now, you don't really need to buy ships, but you know you want to. You know you can't resist the allure of the ships. When you first start the game and you have no idea how to get dilithium, you see the runabout, otherwise known as the funabout, for only a few thousand energy credits. And then you scrimp and save until finally the day comes and you can buy what is really just a cool but useless ship. Now, each time you earn a new rank, you are given a ship for free. That's how I got this thing right here. You can, of course, grind a lot and then get other ships, but for me, I like to just have 1 ship that I sink all my upgrades into. Lastly, we have the missions. Now for me, I find every other MMO to be rather boring. Why? Because you complete the same missions over and over again, and grind, and grind, and grind some more. But here, there is always something different to do. There are numerous types of missions out there, and they all vary from one another. Even the grind quests, of which there are only a few, at least vary it up now and again. And not all of what you do in the game is kill things. Sometimes you can go into new systems and just scan for things and then move on. Now, the actual multiplayer aspect of some missions is not contrived, and it actually fits into the universe quite well. And they are never forced upon you. And best of all, there's actually a great deal of incentive to do some of these multiplayer missions, as some will give you dilithium and other rare resources. The game world itself never gets dull, and traveling to other planets in order to complete missions never gets annoying. In order to travel to other planets, you have to go to sector space, and damn does it look good. And the travel times are manageable, and you can't get attacked while traveling, which goes a long way towards keeping the dullness down. Also, sometimes one must go to the headquarters building, and you can fast travel to it at pretty much any location at any time. Star Trek Online, of course, is not without its share of flaws. In fact, I faced a rather annoying bug from the very first screen, with the game outright failing character creation, with the only workaround being entering a default name. The game also doesn't like you to rename things at certain times. When I got my runabout, I tried to rename it, and it kept saying there was some sort of white space error, and finally, after trying it about 8,000 times, it finally accepted the name. So apparently, Star Trek Online is not good with names, but it is very good with faces. The game can crash now and again, but it actually is fairly rare. Ultimately, though, Star Trek Online is an absolutely amazing game. It is by far my favorite Star Trek game, and one of my favorite games in general of all time, and I cannot recommend it enough. And so, this is Captain John, and I'm setting a course for the third star from the right.